Daily video for November the 4th, which is tomorrow. I'm doing this daily video on the weekend. I'm doing it at exactly 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday. Lots to talk about in this daily video. It's going to be quite a long one. And the first I'd like to talk about is oil. As many know, in September, I've been telling a lot of people to really watch oil. Now, a lot of people bearish oil, a lot of, which the charts were at one time showing, the price going all the way to the 65 level, 64 on this contract, showed that it was not looking too good, but there were certain patterns and prints and being able to connect the dots where I took a long position in oil around on the previous contract around the 66 mark, and it did fantastic. And I ended up buying it again at the 60 here. This is 6 days ago, as you can see here, at the 67.54 level, and I took 50% down at 69.55 and waiting for 72.50 area, which never clipped, but still have a position. It's above these bazooka blocks. I just wanted to point out, and I've talked about this before. Do you remember when oil went minus 20? It was obviously gamed. That's when Trump was in the president. And something is telling me that there's going to be a parabolic move to the upside. Now, it needs a trigger. And many people know I like to look at geopolitics. Many people thought that Iran would never retaliate against Israel, and that Israel would never retaliate against Iran. It was just, my feed was just flooded, and they were proved wrong because the writing was on the wall for people that could see it. And you'll see many times I tweet about that. The writing's on the wall. Some people can't see it. Some that I talk to on a regular basis that also follows geopolitics like I have for the last 25, 30 years, gets to pick up on things that other people don't. And this strike that Israel hit Iran, I did say, if you got to be in cloud nine if you think Iran's not going to retaliate. They're not, meaning that they know that their nuclear facilities and most likely their oil facilities will most likely get hit. Now, since the last strike Israel did to Iran, a lot of people were saying, it was nothing burger. It was, they didn't hit the oil facilities. And then there was a headline that came out. I got to laugh a little bit. That said, Iran tensions have eased, and that's why oil went down. And I'm like, this just gave me, and it got down like $4. I'm like, this just gave me another buying opportunity. And I pulled the trigger at 67.54. So when that happened, they game it, and they do it at 6 o'clock p.m. that they gapped it down. Very light volume. And if you could see when they really push price, where they really want to manipulate it, it's usually from that 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. mark, usually at 6:30. And they did it. I remember oil, no news or nothing, went up $3 at like 6:15 p.m. I'm like, what the hell was that? They use those times to really, it's easy, right? There's not a lot of contracts on the bid, on the sell, and it's easy just to, if you have a couple bucks there to push the price where you want. And that was a good buying opportunity for me. And as you could see where it just showed you, that 67.54, I got in right here, around here, the 64, around the bazooka block. That wasn't me, by the way, but where I bought, they just suddenly appeared after, which, like I've always said, our pivots always come before these institutions. Many people that have been following know the pivots that we have, us pivoteers that, really look at these markets, and many of the Pivot King course members that, used the same methodology that I used for looking at areas of very good areas to, buy where other people wouldn't. It ended up working out. And then we got some bazooka blocks to solidify that area, and it just took off. Now, the price is above all these bazooka blocks. These are quite the amount. My lower band is starting to turn up. Hey, buddy. Notice that the oil hit my gray line, which I also said in the daily videos that it's going to this is going to be resistance, that 71.50 area, and they smacked it down hard from there. Right now, it's at this bazooka block cluster area around 69.20, around 69.05 to 69.20 is strong support. Let me just bring up the oil here in case it goes lower. These are areas that it could go. It could the 68.95 to 69.05. Actually, I should have put that there. And below that, 68.30 in a sweet spot. If it were to get back to the level where I bought, which is visiting back these bazooka blocks, and if they do, they'll probably end up buying more. Is the 67.40 to 67.50 sweet spot. Now, considering what happened over the weekend, this is just. There's been a lot actually, and it all happened after the market closed on Friday around 6 p.m. The news came out that 12 B-52 bombers have been sent to Qatar. That is huge. Like there's only around 30, I think, or 32 B-52 bombers in the United States Army. They send 12. That means business. Either they're, putting a posture there to warn Iran, don't do anything. Or something big is about to happen in the Middle East. I think something big is going to happen. A lot of positioning around the world. This could be a simultaneous strike with North Korea striking South Korea, China entering Taiwan, considering that China is still surrounded Taiwan with severe military power just staying there. And the North Korean troops down in Russia and Russia doing all types of nuclear tests. It seems to be a lot of posturing here, or it seems to be that something is about to go down. Considering the U.S. elections are Tuesday too, it's just things are really, really escalating now. And oil could do something that is just out of the ordinary, especially if Iran's facilities get hit. One of them being the oil facilities, which I can see Iran, which I've talked about before, closing down the Straits of Hormuz, and they have the ability to do that. And that would definitely crash the market, which I think Trump wants personally. I've talked about that before, and it seems to be lining up, by the way. I don't want to get into the details, but many people that have been following me know my analysis with regards to that. And many people that I speak to geopolitical-wise agree. Now, some people that are listening to this right now will probably be saying, you know what, never know. They've been proved wrong over and over, and then I can see all your tweets being deleted. It's so funny when one guy about the VIX, I'm like, the VIX is bullshit. It's about to pop. And I remember one person tweeted is like, don't tell Pivot King, or some other FinTwit said VIX is about to get smashed. And I ended up going back to that tweet and I just see all these tweets deleted. And I'm like, oh my Lord, just people are so weird out there. Like, why would you delete it? It's speculating. You could be right, but I was just pointing out the charts are showing. Remember the VIX where I showed the bazooka block central, where this just a huge amount of UVIX and VIX futures blocks right at the lows. And I've seen it before. I've seen it as accumulation, and 9 times out of 10 it works out and it just pops. Sometimes it just gets under it and then it pops. But I don't have a crystal ball. All I can do is just look at the charts, look for those probable setups, and say, yeah, there's a probable setup here. If this stays intact, look higher, and it does. Kind of like what I'm doing with oil here. If this 66 area stays intact, which I think it will, considering the price is above these bazooka blocks, I'm looking for these higher targets with potentially hitting $85, but it would need a trigger for that. And notice I've said $85 on oil about a month and a half ago. Many people that have been listening, I've said, and even on a show with Dale, I said, like, if there's really a serious trigger, it could get to 85, and it could blow that away, by the way. But 85 is a target. It is set up in the charts, as you can see here. I do have that 85 sweet spot. I think it does get there personally, but it would need a trigger. And that trigger would have to be the Middle East, which I think is heating up, and I think happens, as many people know that I've been screaming off the top of my lungs that, look, this is serious. A lot of people think that it isn't. I think it is. And I think it's escalating to the point where something is going to happen, whether it's on the election day or just after, or maybe tomorrow or even tonight. All I know is Iran, as of like maybe 15 minutes ago, just the Iranian president, Iranian military there, some news I just looked at, closed the airspace from November the 4th, which is tomorrow, to November the 7th, I think, or November the 6th. So when they usually close that airspace, it means that something's about to happen, and that's basically 48 hours. So it either could happen at any time or probably during the election. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way. if it happens during the election. And then things are just going to get wild. Remember, there's one thing that the Fed can't stop, and that's oil. I've talked about that before. I think if Trump gets into power, according to the polls, he's winning, I think he's going to want a clean slate. So by January 20th, we could see definitely powers that be taking this market really down. And you know what? To be honest, according to the word out there, the market's up and it went parabolic because it's a sign that Trump is winning, because Trump is for the stock, for business and whatsoever. This is the narrative that's going around. So, and if Kamala wins, they would air out the market. So basically, I'm going to be doing ES next. And if you could see my oscillator, it's still peaked up there. So I think it's doesn't have that much room, and it's done already a parabolic move. So I think whatever happens, worst case scenario could be, I think it's going to come down. As you all know, the charts are showing short the rips. I said that about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I'm in short the rip mode based on the charts, based on patterns that I'm seeing. And the short the rip mode has been playing out. In fact, many took that sweet spot of 58.55 that I put on Dale's show. That was like September the 20th. If you look at my Twitter here, you'll see that here I gave the 58.55 target. And that was September the 20th. It ended up hitting it and went quite, I think about 40 points down there, and took it out, went to 59.27.25, which I had a pivot of 59.25, and it got, pounded pretty hard. Right now it's 100 points below that sweet spot. And I did say we could see a very deep pullback before the election, like pretty bad, maybe even a breaker. Look, many know that when Trump won in 2016, I got bombarded on FinTwits, and I was saying Trump's going to win, and it's going to break the market. And it did, and I made a boatload there because I saw it in the charts. Like I've always said, everything is in the charts if you could read charts. If you're a good chartist and you're good at analyzing data within the charts, everything is in the charts. You don't even need macro. Everything is in the charts. Everything for that security. Whether it's being gamed, manipulated or not, it's in there if you could read it well and you're a good chartist. So going into this election, it's in the charts, just like it was in Brexit when we nailed the Brexit move lower. And I said, yep, they're leaving Brexit based on the charts. And it worked out. And I said, this looks like a breaker, and it breakered. Many people know that are part of the community. We caught that move. Trump in 2016, it's highly documented when I said, it looks like we're going to get into a breaker if Trump wins. I didn't expect the move up though, but it did fly. I remember covering at the bottom because it couldn't even go lower. It breakered, right? And I was like, I covered. And thank God I did, because it flew back up. What I'm saying is, whatever happens during the election, there will be a trigger and you could take advantage of it. And there's signs that you could see that a trigger is happening. And one of them being is pivots get sliced, which brings me to oil. If there's a trigger in oil, like I said, to get to 85, there's going to need to be a trigger. Notice the gap down here. This was the game, and where they came up with the article, Iran tensions have eased. What Iran tensions have eased? Iran tensions got worse. I remember speaking. Sorry, I remember speaking to some in the forum. I'm like, can you see the headlines they're coming out with? This is a good buying opportunity. And pulled the trigger, 67.54, and boom. And I wish the 72.50 area held, because I'm going to be taking some down there, but it didn't. Got to the green line, got smacked down. I still like higher, but like I said, it can get definitely to those lower pivots here. It can. So these are lower pivots in case they do another scheme on Sunday, maybe gap it down again. Who knows? I think they're going to gap it up, but considering what's been happening over the weekend, but as you all know, as anybody with an eye can see, it's severely gamed oil, but it doesn't mean that they still keep things intact, such as the upside. As I've been saying, right now it's a higher high than this level, and it's still making kind of higher highs and a little bit lower lows. So they're keeping it really difficult for oil. But what I like is that it's above these bazooka blocks, which I said I think it's going to get above these bazooka blocks, and it's got room for higher. And right now, my oscillator is about to cross again, and this could be a bullet to the upside, but it would need a trigger. And the Middle East could be the trigger, and it could go parabolic. We're talking over 100 plus, It could definitely go parabolic like it did minus 40, and that will distort the market big time. And really, look, something's up. All I could say is be careful. And if you're not comfortable, just stay out, right? This is kind of my arena. I like when I see volatility in a security, I take advantage of it. Some people, it's not for them. And if it's not for you, stay out, because you can get absolutely destroyed if you don't know what you're doing and you make a wrong move. So be careful. And if you're not comfortable, it's always good to step aside. Just wait and wait for a clear setup. But there's other traders, and I know some of them, including myself, that take advantage of these situations because we get to see things based on experience where certain levels get sliced without a pullback or without, like, for example, if it's going to the outside and doesn't pull back from the sell, it just slices it and slices the B. There's something else going on and you can take advantage of it riding. The only way you can is if you've seen it before, kind of like the Trump exit where it got destroyed and it circuit breakered. Those are certain tells there that you could see something else is going on. And that comes with experience. And if you don't have that type of experience where you could take advantage of it, you could be, you probably be buying the dips while it's being sliced, and you're going to get sliced because you're conditioned to buy the dips, right? So just be careful. And this next week and then maybe even 2 weeks, and see what's happening. There's always a setup. And if you miss a big move, it's okay, because the market will always present itself another move in another security. That's all I'm going to say. But for us pivoteers that have been trading for 10 plus years, many that have been with me since 2016, I'm kind of looking forward to what happens in oil and what happens in the markets, because it's a time where you could really take advantage of certain situations, especially if you traded them before, like I have with Trump exit, Bree exit, this was documented all within the forum, where we caught the whole move. This could be another setup. I think it is. As you all know, I think the market will breaker sometime before or right after the elections. I'll see if I'm right. Just based on what I'm seeing, I think a breaker is coming, maybe even two. I said this in Dale's show. Oil could be a trigger, which I think it is a trigger. This is all speculation, by the way, but the charts are supporting it based on what I'm just showing you here. And I'm going to be talking about ES, where I said about a week and a half ago, sell the rips is in play, and it's playing out. So let's see if, it gets into that severe territory area. And by the way, you see a lot of posts where they'll say ES is oversold. It's oversold. It's oversold. Remember, if there is something bigger going on because of all the triggers that are blinking red lights everywhere, as Christopher Wray said from the FBI, everywhere he turns, he sees red lights. If this escalates and it's oversold, remember, crashes happen when the market's oversold, and it just gets more oversold and more oversold. And a lot of people don't know that because they haven't been trading long enough to know that. Crashes happen when the market's oversold. Kind of like when oil crashed, it was oversold. And when more oversold and more oversold. And that's kind of the same thing that would happen with the market. So just be careful. If there is a trigger, for it to happen, it needs a trigger. And all I'm saying is there is so many triggers out there that I don't trust. I think Wall Street, I think the boys are just keeping things together until they want to pull the plug. And they could pull the plug easily. They can crash this market anytime they want. You just have to have certain funds sell at the same time. And that would just take out levels, get the bots going short, and then everything will just snowball effect. Kind of like when it happens to the upside, where it's like a crash to the upside, it can happen to the downside. So just be careful. I'm going on a rant here. I'm already 19 minutes talking about this. So like I said, this is going to be a long daily video. So I'm going to fast forward to oil. Oil, I'm bullish still. Dips to be bought. Price above the bazooka blocks. 85 target if there's a trigger. And of course, it could just smash that and go higher. You'll know if there's no pullback, if it might even gap up. It should gap up Sunday, but you never know. If it doesn't and it happens to go lower again, these are areas that I'm looking for lower. I wouldn't mind adding again because I've already sold 50% at the 69.55 area from the 67.50 probable setup. So if it gets around, I would say to around this area here, I'll probably pull the trigger and add back. I'll have to see how the intradays look. But I'm bullish oil, as you all know. Things can change if this 66.50 area breaks. I'll see what happens. I'll have to see. But considering all the rhetoric, what's happening right now, and if you follow geopolitics, the airspace just being closed, like as of I think like an hour ago, from November 4th to November 6th, the B-52 bombers sent and the massive military equipment, which they already have a massive presence in the Middle East. They just sent more. Scary. Bullish oil. So we'll see what happens on the open. It should gap up. I don't know though, because it's gamed. It should gap up. But all I'm going to say is watch oil, because oil could definitely affect the markets if it does a parabolic move, which I think they're setting up. That's all I'm going to say. Let's move on now to ES, which I'm going to lots to talk about with ES. Lots.